Hey everybody, welcome to the Spodcast. I'm Josh, and I am joined by Campster.
Hello.
And returning from the mystical world of Europe, Alex.
Yo.
So full disclosure here, we don't have an agenda right now, or, ever, but especially not right now. We just all kind of popped in here and said, okay, we need to do this before Alex falls asleep, because it's 8 p.m. right now on the West Coast, 11 p.m. on the East Coast, and Alex is running on Netherlands time. So I'm just going to start out where I guess the most logical point to start is and say, Alex, what was the Netherlands like?
Well, I don't want to regale you with all my tales, but it was fun. I met Jarenth, which was really cool. I think I talked his ear off because I was I did it on my own, and he was really the only person I spoke to for more than 5 minutes for that whole 2 weeks. So I was like, oh my god, a person who speaks English and also cares about what I have to say. So that was very exciting. But yeah, the Dutch are nice people. I'm very sick of burgers and fries and deep fried gravy and food vending machines, and I am sick of the rain. It's actually nicer here in Canada and warmer.
Really?
We are more south slightly, but I think we just don't have the rainy season that they do, and it's probably because they're more on the coast than I am. And I don't know.
Well, they
I don't
live
know about
underwater anyway.
Yeah. That probably makes sense too. But there was literally every day where it was raining at some point. And when you're traveling with a backpack, that's kind of a pain, and limited supplies.
So you went out there for an academic conference or something?
Nope, just for fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said it was being paid for, but no. Okay, that's cool then.
Now that'll be TwitchCon. That'll be my academic expenditure, of course. But no, I was actually planning on going to Korea, and because I've been there before, so it was going to be okay, now that I know how everything works, now I can really do some exploring. But then kind of things got a little bit more heated in North Korea, and I decided it was not a good decision to go to that part. It's always heated, but especially heated. And so I kind of quickly changed my mind and booked a whole bunch of stuff really fast in the Netherlands to have a sort of chill trip there. But I learned a lot, and a lot of people were surprised that I was even bothering to travel the Netherlands. People are mostly used to people coming into Amsterdam and then heading off to the rest of Europe, but not a lot of people spend a lot of time in the country. So people were surprised, but also, I guess, happy to see someone cared.
What country Netherlands secrets did you discover?
So this is going to be weird, but the first thing that comes to my mind is that some people are buried in graves that don't have any markers except for sticks, which really freaked me out. So I ended up in a graveyard at some point during a hike, and there were just graves everywhere that had sticks and maybe some rocks and stuff, and I thought that was mad sketch, but it's legit, and that really freaked me out.
Old
I don't
graves
know if that's
or recent graves?
Well, I don't actually know, because they didn't have any sort of name or date. So I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Huh. Well, that's interesting. We'll have to ask Jarenth
at
some
that'll
point.
be a Jarenth question.
What's up with that?
Well, and I learned about the food vending machine.
With sticks?
Because that's not a thing I've ever seen before, where they just have boxes in the wall, and you put your money in the coin slot, and then you get to open a little box, and it has a little hamburger in it, and you just grab it, and you just take your hamburger. And I didn't actually have a box in the wall hamburger, because I was already eating a lot of hamburgers as it was, but it seemed to be very exciting and popular, and this new sort of craze.
I don't know if I want a wall hamburger. Like, are they made on the other side of the wall, I would hope?
I think so. I think someone's behind the little Dutch hamburger elves.
Like a frozen hamburger that gets auto microwaved or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I didn't stick around long to find out. The cheese is obviously amazing there. Beers is very good too. But again, a lot of the beer that you find is Belgian as well, because, that's their thing. But it's like Europe too, where it's just you can find wine everywhere. People are always drinking wine and hanging out on terraces, and the biking system is obviously something people talk a lot about, but it's really intense, and it's nice to see a society that is able to function that way. And it shows, because I think everyone is just generally in better shape.
Yeah, I understand they also have a mass transit system that works.
Yep.
Which is something I've never seen before, being an American.
Well, in Canada it's the same thing too. It's just like, yeah, like I wish I could bike everywhere, but that's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the biggest thing that I find that European visitors to the US have to deal with is like the idea that, like, yeah, you have to own a car here. You cannot, like, maybe if you live in a big city like New York or Boston or something, you can get around, biking or whatever. But like, you pretty much, like, anywhere else, anything that's even remotely suburban or rural, you have to have a car. There are no trains. Like, you cannot take a train to my city. It doesn't exist. We have a freight line. That's it. And there's a lot of the U.S. that is like that.
If you visit like the top 5-ish metropolitan areas in the United States, those probably have decent transportation. Your Chicago, your Los Angeles, maybe not Los Angeles, your Chicago, your San Francisco, your New York.
Los Angeles had a mass transit system, and then lobbying from automobile companies got rid of it, and now it's the tales of the Los Angeles highways that you hear.
I mean, there's let's say 3 out of 5 of the biggest metropolitan areas in the United States have really good, passable public transit. Anywhere else in the States, nothing. Like, my local, I live in the capital of this state, and it is, I think, the second most populous city area of the state. I want to say Charlotte is larger by population. And my biggest memory of public transit is being behind one of the local area transit buses and watching as a man in a wheelchair at a bus stop was looking forward to his bus, and we were behind the bus, and the bus just kept driving and didn't stop at his stop. And I saw the guy in the wheelchair like flip out and be like, "What the hell?" and just freak out. And while we drove past him, and I felt really bad, but I didn't know what we could do because we can't make the bus stop. Like, that is the quality of transit in this country. So, yeah. So yeah, rent a car or plan on buying Uber or renting Ubers or whatever, taxis. Your transit of choice.
Well, that's the thing about a lot of Europeans is that like I have a number of European friends who just can't drive and have never like bothered to get licensed to drive and don't own a car. And it's like, well, you can't rent a car if you can't drive.
Yeah, that would be a big issue. But then it's like, are you really going to get a driver's license for traveling to the United States?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it just is not a thing people would even think of.
I mean, I have a driver's license, and I don't want to drive in, like, England because they're on the wrong side of the road.
Well,
or is it the right side and we're all wrong?
most of Europe is. In fact, most of the world is not that. In fact, the
Well, I know,
British
but that's why I
side
said
is the
England.
wrong side of the road. Yes.
Right or wrong, it's subjective. All I know is that one of the most funniest things to see is in Amsterdam, all the tourists walking on the bike path and have all the Dutch people ring their bells and yell at people. And then they get scared because they're looking at their phones or trying to take a picture, and then they all laugh at them. It's
those
very
people ever seen a
clearly
bike
marked.
lane? Like, we
It's
have
like
bike
a
lanes
red
here.
pavement. It's very clear where the bikes are. Like, you know, like it. People are so oblivious. They're just walking around in a daze.
Goddamn Americans.
The problem with bike lanes in the United States is that bike lanes are really good, but then in areas without bike lanes, which is the majority of places, bicyclists start being this weird nether entity, which are both vehicles on the road and not vehicles. Like, you have to obey by the bike's rules, and that freaks a lot of people out, makes people angry, and that's where I think a lot of conflict happens.
Yeah.
Because, like, bikes can weave in and out. Bikes aren't supposed to, but bicyclists weave in and out of traffic. They turn without signaling. They can get up on the sidewalk and do other things that a car really doesn't get to do. It gets awkward real fast. That's why I freak out when I have to pass a bicyclist. Because, like, if they were constrained to the rules of the road, and it was like having to pass, like, an Amish buggy, where they're just in the center of the road, and I just have to, like, find an opportunity to pass them, that's not a big deal. It's when they're, like, almost on the shoulder, but not quite on the shoulder, but you're supposed to treat them like a vehicle, but they're not a vehicle, and they're wiggling in and out of traffic when you reach a light, but you can't do, like, that freaks me out, and I don't know how to drive around them.
Do you have Amish all the way in North Carolina?
Do I get what?
Amish.
No, but I grew up in Indiana, so I am used to the Amish.
Like, you have to treat bikes as cars, so you legally can't pass two bikes in a row. I don't know what it's like in the
Right.
States, but, like,
No,
that's
that's the
thing.
same
And
in the States. Bikes are cars when they're on the road.
even if you're not moving your car, and the bike hits you, you can be charged. This happened to my brother at a stop sign where he wasn't even moving the car, and the bike hit him on the side, and he was like charged.
I think
So
that's
I get
less
really
the case
sketchy
in the
about
US. I think the US laws are more like, yeah, fucking kill those guys.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, like, in the States, it's this weird thing where, I mean, I know I've read multiple articles about it happening in New York where bicyclists get hit by cars and run over, and the cops are kind of like, you shouldn't have been in the road, and everyone's like, but that's where bikes go, and it's a big thing in bicycling circles.
It's like,
I don't know
most
much
of the
about
places
it.
in Manhattan, you can't ride a bike on a sidewalk. They're too busy.
Anyway, did you see anything cool over there aside from Jarenth, who was neat?
Yeah, the first thing I do, I did actually see other things beside Jarenth, but I went to a lot of art galleries, which I think,
Ooh.
it gets to the point where I think you get overloaded. But I did see a lot
Yeah.
of, like, Van Gogh and Rembrandt. Yes, Rembrandt. And those are, like, the two major, like, painters in the area. And then some Vermeer, so I saw, like, Girl with the Pearl Earring, and that was really surreal and cool. I went to a maritime museum in Rotterdam, because that used to be where the, like, main port of Netherlands, like the old-timey Netherlands, like the Dutch sailors and stuff, so that was really cool. Rotterdam's actually a really neat city because it was the one that got blowed up in World War II and they rebuilt it. So it's like an interesting mix of like very modern architecture and like old school architecture.
That's cool.
And yeah, I took a bunch of pictures of just buildings because it was so cool. And I made my way all the way down to Maastricht, which is where Belgium and Germany kind of meet Netherlands at like a point. So that was just a crazy cavalcade of cultures and people, and I witnessed like a bunch of German people walking around in lederhosen and dirndls for some reason. It's not Oktoberfest yet, but they were just doing their
You gotta
thing.
have your pre-Oktoberfest celebration.
You got to ramp up for
Pre-gaming
all of October.
Oktoberfest.
Yeah, exactly. It's the rehearsal dinner.
Or maybe German people just dress like that all the time, and they're fooling all of us.
Let's not go that far.
Everything I know about the Netherlands, I learned from either Jarenth or that Kyle Calgren video about the Rembrandt documentary / movie about Rembrandt painting a painting.
Oh, well, I did do like all the like touristy stuff in Amsterdam too, like the red light district and touring the coffee shops and all that. So that was something to see. I just was in the red light district yesterday. That was when I toured it, and yeah, that's something. It's yep.
Okay.
People are well, I mean, I don't know what to say besides like it's an industry that like, you know, has existed for like ever.
Sex
But like
workers.
Wait, are we talking about the sex work, or are we talking about like all the kids that go there for pot? Don't kids go there for pot?
Well, pot is not an industry that has existed for forever, so...
The pot is everywhere. It's not just in the red light district, but the I don't know. It's just like people like it's like Vegas, sort of like the Vegas of Europe, or like the New Orleans of Europe, where it's just like people just go crazy and like they get super drunk or super high and like they just act like animals and they bang on the glass and make a scene. And I think for the most part people try and stop them from doing that because it's, you know, prostitution's legal there and regulated. But it's just like it's insane to see people just like lose their mind when they just see a pair of boobs.
I was under the impression that a lot of countries in Europe had legalized prostitution of some degree.
I have no idea. All I know is that like the red light district is like highly regulated, and obviously there's nothing else like that specifically, I think, in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, coffee shops are interesting. The culture of coffee shops was interesting. I was a, you know, fly on the wall for a lot of that, just observing what people did in there and like what like kind of people came in and what the interactions were between people and like the what they call bud tenders.
Bud
What are those?
tenders?
They're like the people who give you the weed.
Oh.
Because it's like a bar or a cafe, right? Like you walk in and there's a menu and you're like,
Oh,
I
they
want
literally tender you the buds. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. But they give you drinks too. Or snacks.
Did they tender you any buds yourself?
I can't legally say yes or no. No,
We cannot confirm it. It's legal here in Nevada, so I can talk about it.
No, I partook in many a coffee shop. Probably like 7 or 8 across the Netherlands, because it's not just in the Netherlands. Not just in Amsterdam, I should say.
Right.
Including one on a boat, because everything is on a boat in the Netherlands.
Well, again, they live underwater.
Well,
They're
yeah,
like the Atlantis of Europe, if Atlantis was a thing that people made after it sunk.
It's like the Rapture. Only less injecty drugs and more smoky drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And significantly less Ayn Rand. A vast quantity less Ayn Rand.
Something we can all do with.
I feel like if I went to the Netherlands and ended up asking Jarenth about the Dutch East India Company, and then he'd end up countering with, like, how are the Articles of Confederation doing, and we'd both just start a giant pissing match about history at that point.
We did talk about how the Netherlands is not a capitalist hellhole yet, which, you know, you can really tell, because shops close at pretty early and, like, aren't open on, like, Sundays and Mondays.
I think that might just be partially a Europe thing, because when I went to Sweden, Visby had the same thing. Like, shops, most of the town was simply not open on Sundays, and aside from 1 or 2 sundry shops, and most places closed at like 6 or 7, but it was also a tiny small town, And I'm curious as to the size of the places you were visiting, because I was in Visby, which is a very small town in what is kind of rural Sweden. And I don't know if you're like in Amsterdam.
Rural Sweden's island, really.
Well, yes, but it's still rural.
Well, I was in several like major cities where things were closed at like sometimes 8, and these were like bars and restaurants. So that was a big surprise to me because I'd figure, big city, like even Amsterdam places weren't open super.
Bars were closed at 8? That's...
Yeah.
Like, were there also, like, the pubs that were open until 2 a.m. or something like that?
There was a select few, but not, like, a majority of them were closed. Even, like, I remember seeing that one of the most famous coffee shops in Amsterdam, Grey Area, closes at 8. And maybe that's just because they can, but I feel like Amsterdam people are going out at night. They want to see the sights and do the things, and, like, you're shit out of luck if you're out past 8 and you want to visit, like, the big one.
What do people do after 8 p.m.?
I have no idea. Like, I tried not to stay out super late, being by myself, but
right.
I would assume that people go home and sleep, maybe? Or troll around the neighborhood.
Well, let's see. We've been going for 23 minutes, and that is the end of my agenda. So, I don't know. Any other thoughts that you can use to fill out the time of this podcast about the Netherlands or Europe or traveling or being stuck in an airport, I guess?
Oh, God, being stuck in an airport. I really like how in airports now they have those little iPad things with the games, but there's, like, so many layers to that iPad that it drove me insane, because it's like an iPad, but it's also you can use to order from the menu, but then there's also those like free to play like slot machine games that you can play. But like you can also sign up for like 3 or 5, like up to 5 different kinds of currency, and one of those currencies that you can earn, you can redeem for like actual food and stuff. But you have to sign up for, like, 3 different things. And I just, like, wonder, like, who has the time and patience for that? And also, who does not have their own phone to, like, work off of? It seems insane.
They just have iPads attached to walls at your airports or something? I've never seen anything
tables
like this. Of course, like, when it comes to gambling, we just have slot machines in the airport, so there's that. That's always a fun thing to introduce people to Vegas in. It's like, oh yeah, you can gamble in the airport if you fucking want to.
Are there people that travel to the airport casino?
They're
like, today I'm going to the airport.
It's not like it's a casino that's like in an airport. It's like just there are slot machines in alcoves like all throughout the airport, like before security, after security, everywhere.
Okay, probably just like a gimmicky thing then, I would assume.
Yeah, like I never understood gambling at slot machines because that seems like the least likely to pay out in your favor ever, so...
But there's so many flashy lights. Don't you want to play this game?
Yeah, I mean, I have a computer at home. I can play video games.
Yeah, but you're not,
yeah,
making
I'm not
the dollars.
The target audience for that.
You could be making mad dollars. So this is a good transition. I can transition here.
By all means.
So I was at I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, the non-spod, this regular podcast, about the gambling conference I went to. Did I talk about the gambling conference?
No.
Gambling conference? Was it in Vegas?
So like, no, I wish.
I feel like I would have a lot of contempt for a lot of the design folks there, but go on.
So it was actually not like a design, like they weren't designers. They were part of the government for the Canadian Partnership for Responsible Gambling. So there were like a lot of like about educating people, and they brought me on because I'm hip with the youth and I knew about video games. And so they're trying to understand video games and its connection to gambling. So they're very much concerned about like the stuff happening with the CS:GO betting and the skin system, and I explained it.
Every free-to-play game ever.
Well, and I thought that's what they were at, but actually, like, they had no idea about any of those things. Because I was like, oh, yeah, like, you could play, like, these gashapon games where you spend money to earn a chance at an item, and that's, like, that is gambling. But, like, that was too deep for them. So I had to go basics, and like they were at the mindset of, my son plays Call of Duty every day. He's going to go to the casinos when he's older because he's already taking up like addictive habits. So like we had to start from there basically.
Like do people that smoke or drink also, are they inevitably bound to go to casinos because they have they take up addictive habits? Like that's not how it works.
It didn't really make much sense to me. So I basically had to say, like, hey, like, that's not really how it works. Oftentimes, like, people are playing games for different kinds of reasons and not necessarily to, make money or feel like we don't have that kind of money to spend. Like, our generation doesn't really have just, like, all this money to just gamble away like that. But also, like, video games are completely different than slot machines.
I wonder what their picture of a whale is, because, like, the reality of a video game whale is just somebody who compulsively spends, right? I'm going to drop, $100 on keys, and I'm going to unlock a bunch of crates, and I trade in what I got to get more crates so that I can spend another $100 and open up all those and trade that stuff for more crates until I get what I want. And it's sort of like a bleed dry at $100 a time. But then I'm trying to picture that versus like the old school kind of gambling whale where like, hi, I'm worth $25 million and I'm going to come into your casino and I'm going to wager $500,000 on this blackjack round. Like, is that what they picture whales being? Like some sort of like guy in a 10-gallon cowboy hat and boots who got rich on an oil rig coming in to bet a ridiculous amount of money? Or
was that ever a real thing?
I don't think it was ever a real thing, but like I think it was.
I'm sure someone's done it.
But like,
sure.
even you live in Vegas. Even in Vegas, like the real Vegas, whales in Vegas are multimillionaires that come in and play at like the $25,000 a seat tables, where the minimum bet is something like 25 or 50 grand. But in mobile games, that's not what a whale is. A whale is just someone who regularly spends a lot and spends often. So you're not talking about someone who's dumping 50 grand on your game a turn. You're talking about someone who drops $100 every week, which is still a ridiculous amount of money for digital items that have no real worth. But that's what a whale is in a world where your average app price is 99 cents.
Yeah, and for the many people, I think that's like a hard line that's drawn of spending versus not spending at all. Like, I think people are very cautious about like, oh, is this a game I'm going to invest in? Is this a game I'm going to put any money into at all?
Yeah, I think market research has backs up that opinion. Like vast majority of people never spend a dime on a particular free to play video game or whatever, but you got like 5 maybe 10% of people that like spend, and they spend a lot. And that's your whales, and that's what you kind of like orient your entire cash shop towards.
It's weird because I think there's 3 tiers. There's the tiers that never spend anything. There's the tiers that'll spend like, I'll buy one pack and see what it's worth, and then it's nothing, and they're like, all right, I'm done. I spent my $5. And then there's the people that get hooked on whatever system you have for whatever reason and just keep spending. And so that's what I'm always interested in when it comes to digital games is like, what is the hook? What is the angle they're trying to sell to you to make you become a whale? Like, well, I'll defer to Alex and let her keep talking. Sorry, I don't want to.
No, like definitely jump in. So, like, obviously we never got into that discussion because also people were there was a major question and answer period where people were asking me questions like, but don't you get any fulfillment for going outside, basically? And I was like, yeah, I wish I was like, But like also that wasn't really the context of the question, but that was basically like what they were getting at. But also like they connected it a lot to like people are addicted to like the social connectivity of games, and so like they were basically like, well, like are they real friends? Like that's also the kind of like
Oh, like
conversation
my
we were having.
parents.
Well, or like more like, oh, like how can you be friends with people online? And
Yeah.
is that connected to like the addictive nature of gambling? And like I'm doing like air quotes, obviously. And then they were also very interested in like um activism in game worlds, which was like the most bizarre thing I've ever heard, where someone was like, yeah, we're working on this like um responsible gambling campaign, and we're going to go into Second Life and start talking to people in the game about responsible gambling. And I was like, please do not do that.
I'm pretty sure
Like,
they've heard
they
all
were
your
very
arguments
serious
there
about that.
before. Does Second Life even have microtransactions?
Can't you buy Linden?
Yeah, you buy Linden dollars. And you could also buy server space and land, yeah.
Come
Or at
on,
least you
Josh,
could,
give it the time.
Like you could a decade
I
ago when I last played Second Life.
I literally have not paid attention to Second Life in like 15 years. Like it's always been this like the weird, I don't even want to say MMO, the weird multiplayer game that's like been off in the shadows of like, oh, I theoretically have heard of people who have played it.
Well, and yeah, like it didn't entirely connect to gambling per se as being like a hotbed for that kind of activity, but I think they were just like opening up like an old textbook from like 2000 and were like, what's the game that people are talking about? Oh, Second Life, lots of people play it. Let's go into that one. Oh, and World of Warcraft. And let's just like get the gamers in their natural habitat. And it's like, yeah, I don't think anyone would stop and talk to you. It just goes to show you like how out of touch like at least the government people I were talking to with were. It's great to see that they learned a lot and that they were trying to learn, but like there's still such a disconnect with the majority of these people and like the video game folk that we are.
Yeah, I guess it's a reminder that, you know, there are just like those people who do not play video games. And, you know, like that's something that like more recently has become like harder to conceive of because you've got, you know, everybody has an iPhone or an Android phone or you've got a smartphone for the most part, you know, like my grandparents don't, I guess, you know, really old people probably don't have those in as great numbers, but you know, like pretty much everybody has a smartphone at this point and mobile gaming is pretty accessible. And if you do any kind of mobile gaming for any period of time, you know, longer than a few minutes, you run into stuff like the free-to-play market and the way that, you know, you in-app purchases and that whole kit and caboodle of weirdness. And like you'd expect that like people whose job it is to understand this stuff would be aware of that in some fashion.
Well, and I often like when I'm talking to like regular people, not regular people, but just like the average Joe who's like questioning about video games is, you know, like everybody plays games. Like everyone is a gamer, I say. Like it's not this sort of like weird demographic. It's just like inherent to our culture that everyone plays games. That's just what we do. And that normalizes it for a lot of people and sort of like gets them thinking about it. But you'd be surprised how many times people like sit down and think like, oh, yeah, like chess is a game. Or like a crossword or something like that.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. It's kind of surprising that people are still like that, but yeah.
And then you get like daydreaming as a sort of play, and then people freak out.
They're like, what? But yeah, that was an interesting event. I tied it to games, video games on our podcast.
Yes, you did a good job there. Unfortunately, we are now out of video games entirely.
No, we're not.
Who said
Oh,
we're
we're
out of
not?
video games?
I got like 4 games here I've been playing.
Oh, good.
Which
Then
4
you
games
can
have you been playing?
Fill out the podcast.
I wrote down Mario and Rabbids, Death of the Outsider, Destiny 2, and HHN Hype because I'm going next weekend, and I know you guys don't want to hear about Halloween stuff yet, so Mario and Rabbids, Death of the Outsider,
do you mean
Destiny
I don't
2,
want to
or
hear
In a
Halloween?
Pinch Pray. Well, I meant more the audience. It's early in the Halloween season, although pumpkins are at my grocery store now, and I keep tweeting pictures of skeletons, so I don't know.
What's HHN?
Halloween
Horror
Horror
Nights. That thing I'm going to next weekend, and Rutskarn is going to sometime in October, but in California.
I'm still
Words are hard.
confused. What is this?
So Universal Studios every Halloween has a big spooky event where they set up a bunch of haunted houses and they have you go through and get scared.
Oh, yes, I've heard of this. I have yet to experience it, mostly because it's far. But it seems like they go, like, really all out.
Last year, Rutskarn went to his first Halloween Horror Nights and almost got thrown out for looking too young to be there, so...
How old do you have to be to get in?
I think it's like 18.
There's no age limit. No, there's no hard age limit. It's
is there not?
I think Rutskarn was tricking you. You can be any age, but they generally advise you be over like 13 just because kids tend to not respond well to monsters jumping out of them.
I think they made a movie about that.
I will say, this year, I have not spoiled myself on any of the houses in Florida, but I watched the run-through of The Shining and the Ash vs. Evil Dead house in California. In California, they decided to use latex masks to emulate both Bruce Campbell and Jack Nicholson for the respective properties, and it doesn't look super great.
Weird.
To have a guy with like a... Well... Also, it's California, so I think they're acutely aware of, like, likeness issues. So, they're, like, not even Jack Nicholson and Bruce Campbell masks. They're, like, likeness-avoiding, but still capturing the essence of the character masks.
What's the point of using a mask at all if you can't use the fucking likeness of Bruce Campbell and Jack Nicholson?
I kind of have to look this up now.
I can send images. It looks really bad. It looks...
Yes, please.
It looks pretty bad. Hold on.
And I realized you just said we weren't going to go here, but I am generally very fascinated by this whole thing.
Can I link a Facebook? I guess I can. I said lick a Facebook.
Audio
and that's
format. I just want to remind you...
All right, well, I just want to hear her reaction. We can cut this part out. Hold on. All right, there's the Jack Nicholson masks. I don't have any of the Bruce Campbell on me.
Am I going to be actually scared?
No, not even a little bit. It's a Facebook post to my
Oh,
Facebook
it's Jack
post.
Black! It looks like Jack Black, but very haggard and old.
So yeah, it doesn't look super great. So I wish Rutskarn the best of luck. I hear that Florida doesn't have any of these latex masks.
An effort was made.
Anyway, I've also been playing Destiny 2, or Mario vs. Rabids, or Death of the Outsider. What do we want to hear about?
Well, I'm going to pick Death of the Outsider up later this week. I'm in the middle of, credit card billing period rollovers and paychecks and stuff like that. So, I'll pick it up in a couple of days. How has Mario Rabbids been? I've been meaning to pick that up and just never got around to it.
Do you like XCOM?
Kinda.
Do you like Mario?
Yeah.
Do you like emergent play where maybe it feels like there shouldn't be emergent play?
That sounds interesting.
Then you should pick up Mario and Rabbids, the game about shooting dudes as Mario.
I still can't believe this game exists, frankly. What the fuck is this thing where Ubisoft takes their boring weird rabbit franchise, meshes it with Mario, like gets Nintendo's permission and sign off to mesh it with the Mario universe and make a video game that is literally just a ripoff of XCOM, and this exists. Like, what?
It's, how do I phrase this? It's not 100% XCOM. Like, everyone freaked out when they saw the Overwatch ability. The only person who has that ability is Mario. So each character has their own ability and their own preferences, and so it's not quite XCOM-y. And also, things like distance don't change anything, so it's also not like XCOM in that regard. It's not like you're ever going to get like 73% chance to hit. It's either 100% chance to hit because you flanked somebody, 50% chance to hit because they're behind partial cover, or 0% chance to hit, and that's it. So it is a big simplification over XCOM. That said, it is basically XCOM, and I don't know how they convinced Nintendo to build this game.
Well, and you can't permadeath Mario, I assume.
You can't permadeath anyone, actually. So here's one of the interesting things. They don't have permadeath, but they wanted to carry forward this idea of consequence to a degree. So in each world, there's like, it's like Mario, right? It's like World 1, World 2, World 3, World 4, and each world's battles are listed as like World 1-1, World 1-2, World 1-3. So each battle is like a level in Mario. But health carries over between levels. So if you screw up and Mario takes a beating in level 1-2, he will not have great health for level 1-3. So that's kind of one of the things that makes it interesting. And it's not like there's an inventory system that lets you just like buy health kits. Occasionally between levels, there will be a red mushroom that lets you heal all your guys a certain amount. But there is no way to like get everybody up to 100 without restarting the entire world. And that's where the game's harshness feels like it comes into being. Like the real XCOM-y bit of it is carrying health forward between rounds. Does that make sense?
Yep.
What happens when somebody is completely knocked out in a round? Do they get like revived with the lowest health, or?
Yeah, I think it's like 5 or 10 health that they start the next round with, which is like if they get tapped at all, they're down.
So it is like in a way like a semi-permanent death where these people are pretty much useless for the next round until you finally get stuff to heal them.
Yeah, you get fully rehealed at the end of each world, and you get healed if you can find mushrooms. But not all mushrooms are easy to find. You might have to do stuff so the game sets itself up as like when it goes to XCOM mode, it's XCOM. But then when it's not in XCOM mode, you're not in a different level. Like, if you fight a bunch of dudes and you shoot a bunch of blocks and a bunch of coins come out, but then you finish the level and you win, you can walk back over to where you dropped those coins and pick those coins up in the open world. So there's like an open world, but the turn-based gameplay takes place within it.
So it's almost more like a third person like turn-based RPG where like you go into encounters and end up in the turn-based like XCOM stuff, and then you explore the rest of the world without it.
It's pretty linear
JRPG.
Yeah, it's pretty linear. It's not like I said open world, and that's probably a bit of a stretch. Each world is pretty linear, but there are secrets to find, and that's how the overworld, and that's how you get your mushrooms to heal your guys, and that's how you find secrets to unlock like bonus moves and unlock weapon plans. And that's the other thing, you have to spend the Mario coins you get on fancier guns and things like that. Again, there's no base building, but it does capture like the barest bones sense of XCOM. Because, like, you have to worry about, like, do I want to invest the 150 coins I have in making Mario a better fighter, or do I want to make the heal character heal better? And you have to, like, sit down and think about, like, how you want to apply a limited set of resources. It is not as deep or interesting or complicated or as squishy as XCOM 2, but it captures a lot of what makes XCOM 2 good, except for the actual character building, because they're all Mario prefabs and you can't change the character.
It's basically XCOM as applied to a turn-based RPG.
Yeah, think of it as Super Paper Mario XCOM, and that's basically.
See, that still sounds really cool.
On the whole, it is really cool. I like having a. See, so here's my problem. I really like having a portable XCOM, and that's really neat. But I also have Disgaea 5 on my Switch, and if I want like turn-based combat, I'd rather go with the number crunchy, level up, grindy game than the tactical dice roll. Oh, the numbers didn't come up in your favor. Up, you're screwed. You lose game. And that kind of sucks. The other thing that pushes me away from Mario and Rabbids is, like I said earlier, the weird emergent play. So, like, there are elements here that are aimed to be emergent play, and it's weird. That's something XCOM does not have, is this stuff. Like, for example, the Rabbid Luigi, half the characters are Rabid versions of Mario characters. Rabbid Luigi is kind of a spellcaster. His guns focus on dealing elemental damage. And you can set him up with a fire gun that has like a 30, 40, whatever, 50, depending on how good of the gun it is, chance of lighting bad guys on fire. And so what I end up doing is like running him up to the corner right next to him. So imagine a I don't know, a pillar or something, a square bit of cover, where a bad guy is on the north side of the cover, and my Rabbid Luigi comes up on like the east side, so next to him. And so he's got a good shot, 100% chance at flanking him and firing. When he flanks him and fires, and causes fire damage such that it burns that that monster, Rabbid, they're all Rabbids. The Rabbid freaks out and starts being on fire and running around. And there's a possibility if that Rabbid who is on fire bumps into other Rabbids, it will set them on fire. But there's also a possibility that he will bump into your guys and set them on fire. And if you're at the east corner of somebody who's on the north side of that face, if he marches towards you, it is very likely he will set you on fire. So I have had multiple occasions where my Rabbid Luigi has died because he has fired a firebolt at a Rabbid, set him on fire, and that fire Rabbid comes at him and burns him, and they both are now running around on fire. And it's like, it's a cool emergent play moment, but it's also like, God damn it, game. So stuff like that. Also, like, Mario's Overwatch is interesting. Mario's Overwatch is an emergent play generator because he will strike any entity that is moving that is an enemy. So, like, what ends up happening for a cool combo is one of the other gun modifiers, elemental guns, is push. So there's like a 25% chance to, like, push an enemy away and have them roll physically away. So on your turn, you can have, like, the Peach enemy Rabbid Peach, move towards a bad guy, fire her gun, and if the push weapon triggers, the bad guy will start rolling, and Mario in Overwatch will go, oh shit, it's a bad guy that's moving, and start firing. But that kind of sucks. That's cool because it deals multiple damage per turn, and it basically means Mario gets to shoot twice per one turn. But if you're not planning on that, it sucks because you wanted Mario to be Overwatch for other guys that you knew were going to be coming.
He uses his Overwatch up after one shot, and then he doesn't do anything for the rest of the enemy turn.
Exactly. So there's like emergent play like that where it's like, it's on one hand it's really cool that a Mario game has some sort of emergent play. On the other hand, it's like kind of frustrating because most of the time it comes back to bite you in the ass rather than being a cool thing that kills the bad guys. I like it. It's neat. It's interesting.
How would you recommend this game for kids? Like, is this something that they could pick up and play, or is this more like the teen?
It's more teen. It is. The mechanics are pretty straightforward, but it is not messing around with the difficulty. Like, the very easy challenge mode, I can't beat because I don't have the right characters, and it doesn't tell me that.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, so that's one other thing I want to bring up before we move on. The other thing that I really like about this game that XCOM doesn't have is the movement mechanics as damage dealing mechanics. So basically, like, you get to... XCOM has a thing where every character gets 2 actions, and you can either move and then have one spare action, like shoot or reload, or you can move really far and then have that count as both actions. In Mario and Rabbids, movement is just something everyone gets no matter what. And while you're moving, you can tap one, or depending on the character you have in your team, multiple characters to slide and do damage as part of your movement. So you can literally, like, if there's a Rabbid near you, move, knee him in the crotch, and then move back to where you just were, and then shoot. So movement counts as an attack, even if you don't end up moving physically any direction. So you could, like, start from where you are, move over there, kick him in the crotch, and move back, and that counts as damage, and you've completed your move phase, but you haven't done your action of attack. So that's cool. Also cool is the team-up double jump thing, where if you reach a friend, they can launch you. And if they launch you, this is good for reaching further distances, but you can also do the Mario thing of stomping on bad guys. So you could, launch to your friend and then stomp on a guy, and then roll out of that, go behind cover, and then shoot them. So it opens up a lot of strategic possibilities. There's a lot of interesting movement stuff going on. And there's warp tunnels and other things that make movement interesting. So basically it's like XCOM, but highly, highly remixed and a little bit more accessible, but still very difficult. I would recommend it for teens, not for kids. Not because it's violent, but because it's genuinely pretty hard.
That was definitely something I was curious about, because I know, like, Mario and, like, difficult, like, level curves are just not, like, a thing that I think about a lot, and I wonder about what that game was marketed to. Oh, well, yeah.
It feels teen-ish. It is not hard. Like, I've never reached... I'm only, like, about halfway through it, but I've yet to reach a level where I'm like, okay, F this is impossible. But I've also, like I said, that challenge level, I need to unlock some more characters before I can beat it, and it's listed as very easy, and that's like, ugh. So, it's teen level. Maybe preteen. I feel like a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old can beat most Mario platformers. I don't think a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old could beat this.
Well, that sounds cool. We got a couple more minutes. Do we want to go into another Campster game?
Sure.
We've got a couple of
got a mailbag,
but like I don't know how much we'll have to say about any of these questions.
Are they erotic?
No. Decidedly not, actually.
Have you ever gotten an erotic question?
Probably.
We haven't asked. It's that or Destiny 2. That's the only other game on my list. Or I could talk about Death of the Outsider, but you don't want spoilers. But I don't really have any spoilers to give, but...
So, you can either give me, nor can I ask for anything involving Death of the Outsider.
I'm just saying Death of the Outsider is really good. That's all I'm saying.
All right, let's go into mailbag. Let's ask one of these questions. Okay, I got two subjects here, and you guys can tell me which one you want me to read. Fantastical Races or Best Game Adaptation?
I have a lot to say about both. More adaptation, because like that was something I worked with a lot. And you will like my answer.
Are you sure? This question may not be what you think.
Uh-oh.
All right, here we go.
I'll take the risk.
Dear Spodcast, what's your favorite adaptation of a video game to another medium? This includes anything from the Super Mario World Choose Your Own Adventure books or the Persona 4 anime to the Assassin's Creed movie and the Castlevania Netflix original series. Was there a Castlevania Netflix original series?
Yeah,
it wasn't it.
For the sake of argument, works based on video games in general are fine, like Scott Pilgrim, High Score Girl, or the Gamers anime. Love, Christopher.
God, I hate Scott Pilgrim.
Really?
Oh.
The movie, not
the only thing we have. Leave us alone. Us Canadian nerds.
No, the comic is good. It's the movie. I don't like the framing of the film.
I want to ask, but then we wouldn't be answering the question, so maybe we'll save that. But
all right, so
that definitely wasn't the question I had in mind.
I had a feeling.
So now I have to think for a min.
I mean, I know my favorite game adaptation, but video game is harder.
It's been a while since I've seen them, but I remember really enjoying a lot of the Street Fighter anime movies. But that could also be because it was a long time ago.
I have this weird soft spot in my heart for The Wizard. It's a really bad film, but it's still kind of great.
The riff tracks makes it enjoyable.
It has the power glove in it.
For the second time tonight, it visits Universal Studios, and I like that.
It has a bootleg copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 that never existed that looks like Super Mario Bros. 2.
I mean, if we're going game to other adaptation, I really like the film Clue.
Oh, yes.
Clue is interesting. Because that film has 3 different endings, and different theaters got different endings. Like in the reel that they got had a different ending on it from other theaters.
Right, but the home video cut, including the cut you get like on iTunes or whatever, is the combined all cut.
One of those endings makes no fucking sense at all.
I think it's the official ending.
Is the official ending the one where Miss What's-Her-Face was the murderer? Because that one made no sense.
No, that's not the official ending. The official ending, I think, is that Tim Curry is his body or whatever.
Tim Curry is his body.
No, Tim Curry's the one that did the murder. You know what I mean.
Oh, okay. I mean, Tim Curry is basically a murderer, so...
I'm trying to think of other good video game adaptations that didn't suck to other media. Like, I like ones in campy ways. I like the Doom novels as, like, terrible pulp sci-fi commercial crap pulp, but...
I was curious about the Halo novels, too. Because, like, I hear people have said, like, they're good, but they're also people I don't trust, like, in opinions about any sort of text-based media, so... I don't know. But they're a thing.
When I was writing anime reviews for The Escapist, I reviewed the Devil May Cry anime adaptation.
Ooh.
But I had never played a Devil May Cry game, so I reviewed it from the perspective of someone who had no idea what was going on, and it was not a good anime for someone like that. It was just bad. Like characters would just show up and they'd be like, yeah, it's that character. And I'm like, I have no idea who that character is. And it's like, okay, we won't tell you.
There's a lot of comics that are based off of games. Again, Street Fighter. I'm just going off of my Street Fighter knowledge because I feel like that's a series that has basically done everything.
I mean, if you put a gun to my head and you had to have me say my favorite video game produced thing that is not a video game of all time, I really like the original Mortal Kombat movie, unironically.
Oh, totally.
It's pretty great. Like, not necessarily as a literary work, but...
What's weird is that really is the story. Like, you really don't recognize how much that is the story of Mortal Kombat until you reach, like, later generations of, like, playing Mortal Kombat 9 or X and being like, oh, wow, yeah, literally that is the story. That is what happened. Because when you play Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, it's sort of, like, inferred or maybe slightly referenced in some of the flavor text when selecting a character, but none of it is... Like you don't actually get a linear narrative the way you do in that film, and that film basically became canon to the point now where I believe Kano actually is Australian.
I wonder if that's like a reverse influence thing where like they had the games with this like plot that's kind of hinted at in like flavor text and stuff, but like maybe they didn't really know what was going on either. Who cares? It's a fighting game. And then they did the movie, and then like later on when they wanted to go into like, hey, let's actually have a plot for this, they just like lifted everything from the movie.
You know what's also not awful, but not necessarily good? The Silent Hill film, the original.
Yeah, I'm actually not...
There was a Silent
like,
Hill
it's
film?
an alright film.
There were two.
There's two of...
Oh God.
The first one's
first
filmed
one's
in
not
a
bad.
city near me. I like the reversal. I like the reversal they do with it, where they have like the mother, being like the person that looks for the daughter, as opposed to, I guess it's most based on Silent Hill 1. Either way, the reverse gender thing is interesting because, like, dads are kind of obviously dominant in like games right now, but like it would be cool to see
dads.
like a game, sad dads, but like it had a sad mom in it, and it carried a theme at least throughout that was kind of worked.
What about audio adaptations? Are we allowed to talk about audio adaptations?
Sure,
We're
why
allowed to
not?
talk about whatever we want.
I'm going to regret saying this, but like that song that says that Stephen Hawking is a Quake master, I kind of love that song. No one has any idea what I'm talking about.
It would be helpful if you had the title of the song and maybe the artist.
Here, MC Hawking, Quake master. I just linked it. It is literally MC Hawking.
Okay, so we are an audio medium. Yes, I probably can't put that in the Spodcast.
No,
though.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it's a song by Stephen Hawking's voice modulator about how Stephen Hawking is awesome at Quake and will beat you. That's all I'm saying. I like that adaptation
That
of
sounds
Quake
pretty
3
good.
to a song.
Has any of us seen the Super Mario Brothers movie?
Yeah, of course.
I haven't.
It was filmed near me.
Are you in the movie?
No. It wasn't filmed near me when I was alive during the filming. It was filmed near me where I am now.
Oh, I did watch the Castlevania miniseries. I thought it's worth a watch. It's only 4 episodes. It like starts out the gate pretty well, and then episode 2 and 3 and like most of 4 is just this drag.
Is it
But
anime
it's
or
also-
live action?
It's anime. Like you will want to watch the Castlevania series if you want to see like super gory like action scenes. Because you have Simon that just whip people's heads off and stuff, and it's like really cool. Demons killing babies and whatnot.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other, like... I've heard really bad things about the Mass Effect novels. I've heard really bad things about the Star Wars The Old Republic novels. But I haven't read any of them.
That might not count. The Halo 3 commercials that try to bring the Halo 3 world to reality. Is that an adaptation, technically?
If we can talk about advertising campaigns, we could talk about the worst game advertising campaigns.
I'm just saying, I really like the way that, like, the Halo 3 marketing campaign for a game that was that stupid was profoundly... It laid the groundwork for Destiny, I'll say that much, in terms of self-important, tone-based marketing. It was very...
Did you see anything from the Guild Wars 2 marketing campaign at all?
Probably some sidebar
Well, first
ads
off,
on the
they
internet.
had a truck that drove around Seattle while I was at PAX in 2010 that just had Guild Wars 2 emblazoned on the side of it, but they had quite possibly the worst video game trailer I've ever seen. Several of them, actually, which was this, like, weird live action, like, urban rebel thing with, like, people running around, like, abandoned streets and doing graffiti for Guild Wars 2 and talking about, like, how, like, we've been crying out for a video game that's for us. And then it, like, transitions into Guild Wars 2 in-game, like, footage at the end, and it's just, like, the worst thing ever. I will link this in the show notes somewhere. This horrible trailer.
Bringing it back to Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, I've been playing that. It's been... I don't really have a lot more to say about it.
Jaren's
finally
told me I
almost
need to
finished.
play with you guys.
Yeah, you do.
He's like, bye, Alex. Keep in touch. Play Guild Wars 2.
we will I think there are like 3-person fractal dungeons, so if we had you, we could do those. I'm finally almost finished with the base game story, which like starts out being this thing that you really should have more of, and then like you finally get to level 80 and there's like 20 fucking story missions after that, and it's like, holy shit, why won't this thing end? So that's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for the question, Christopher. If anybody other than Christopher would like to send questions to us, because like literally the last 5 questions I've got in the inbox right now are from Christopher, then you can send a question to spoilerwarningshow@gmail.com, and we will maybe answer it. And we'll accept,
maybe
whatever fucking question you want. Send erotic questions, yes.
But not too erotic. PG erotic.
Send questions about hot men's and video games.
You can say hot men's and you can say boobs, but no swears.
This is a very clean podcast. We don't have swears here.
Exactly.
No cussing.
Anyway, I think that's the end of this Spodcast. I guess we went in without an agenda, and now that we've finished it, I don't know what
I think we learned something today.
I don't think anything developed.
We learned about the Netherlands, and we learned about Mario's rabbit friends, and we learned about how video games don't make good movies, and we learned about how you should send us erotic questions, but not with swears.
And bike safety.
Also, we learned about bike safety. Wear your helmets, kids.
I don't know if we learned so much about bike safety as we learned about the aftermath of what happens when bike safety goes wrong in Canada versus the United States with regards to the courts.
Don't ride your bike in America, kids.
Yeah.
Stay in your protective domes.